equine industry with equine tech,
some law, some insights, impact, and a little bit of cancer banter.
To help you to get that mindset.
Exactly.
I think that helps the people around you to understand that.
Yeah, you have to go in this industry. You have to go to hell and back to appreciate how good it is.
Who's Helen? That's a joke. That was Helen back. I don't get it. Helen. Sorry, go on, carry on.
They're worse than the jokes on our Instagram page.
Yeah, you have to go to hell and back to appreciate how good it is when it's good, because it's really bad when it's bad. And I think, that's the only way you grow in this industry. To really appreciate the good times and get used to losing.
Yeah. And protect yourself for the bad times as well, because you touched on insurance.
Terms and conditions from KMC Legal.
No, well actually, yes. But also get yourself some insurance, because what happens when you're out of work and you're not on a contract with someone, you get kicked in the head, you need your own insurance.
So I think a future guest that we're going to look at having on is
Ken.
Yeah, we could get Ken in, couldn't we? Yeah. So I've got accident protection cover, because as any service provider, you only earn money whilst
she makes money when she cuts her own thumb off, basically.
Has a nice rest.
She did tell me about it, and I also have the same policy.
So look, there are steps that you can take to help to protect yourself as a business owner, aren't there?
100%.
Speak to a good insurance provider, make sure that you're as covered as you need to be.
And listen, we've all been there when you start and the money's tight and you think that £50 a month's my pot noodles for the week, but you don't realise until you're in a situation how important insurance, legal advice, terms and conditions.
Have we mentioned we know a good
pay it is all I'm going to say, because you think it's never going to happen to me, and I've sold 100 horses and you have that one bad one that throws you under the bus, and you're completely blindsided by it because it's a very new experience for you, and then it's like, well, now what do I do? Have contacts you can reach out to, discuss.
Have a network of
have
support,
have your spider web, I call it. Have that network of people that you trust, that are in your corner, that are relatable to you. And even like you were speaking last week about accountants. Like, my first accountant didn't understand the industry, and when I said, I needed to take this money out because I needed to pay the horse physio, she thought I was joking. Do you know? And she was like, horses don't get physio, you've obviously needed that money on a night out or something. And it's like, it's have someone that can best represent you in every warp of life, whether that be a trainer, an accountant, physio, legal advice.
It's a magic team, isn't it?
It is a magic.
If you get together with them from the start, I've said this all along, not plugging us, but if it goes wrong, it's a lot more expensive than preparing.
Yeah.
The cost to have a legal representative to send you one email, if you can, that is an extortionate amount of money for some people, especially for small businesses. Sorry, babe. But for small businesses, if you've just started up,
your terms and conditions are not going to cost you very much.
Exactly.
But if something goes wrong, it could cost you tens of thousands of pounds. I mean, when we were talking at the Farriers Forum, a bit of legal advice in the right way at the beginning would have killed the issue that the farrier had, and it cost him $30,000 to represent himself.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to get at, it wouldn't just be one email that would fix it.
Well, you'd have to have an hour to understand it before you send the email.
So it's best to do the work to begin with. So
we'll move on to some fun things.
Go on.
But just
more jokes. I'm here all day.
No. I mean, I suppose just a closure on that. Is there anything that you think in the industry as a whole can improve? Yeah. So if you're one thing that you think that really needs to change?
I think more positive reinforcement for everybody involved. I think it's can be at times a very negative industry. Or that horse had a bad
people cheering because the horse had
they've
a fence down.
Like,
yes, I think, puts me up the leaderboard. They've had a fence down.
And we've all been in that situation, but I just think not to sound a bit too hippie, but if everyone was a bit nicer, the world would get on a little bit better. And that, I think that's generic, but I think very, very much fits with my industry. I think people are too quick to put other people down.
Well, the horse world can be really horrible.
It is brutal.
And from what I've seen, not from actually competing at that level, I'll make that quite abundantly clear, but you go out with your British novice horses, people don't support you, people are horrible. You take the good horses out at a higher level, people want to see you do better. Have you noticed a difference?
100%. You know, at the lower level, there's the masses, and at the higher level, it's the elite. And I think it's in whatever you do, the masses all want to fight to be, you know, the best. And I think the second also, you know, you sell a horse expensive or you jump a big class and you have a result, people then all of a sudden want to know you and who you are and what you've done. And I think it's sad, but it's, you know, it's a mindset of people.
Life.
Yeah.
It's life.
Okay, go on then, go for a fun question.
What's your favourite pair of riding pants? As in actual underpants?
Underpants?
Oh yeah, have you got some that are just for special occasions?
Yeah.
Like Burley? Yeah. What pants did you wear at Burley?
Yeah, what are your event pants?
Jockstrap.
Did you see the thing about the horse jockstrap? I didn't even realise horse jockstrap.
Yeah, I had a stallion that had one because his testicles used to put him off jumping because they would get in between where his legs would to extend, and then he would start to cramp behind rather than let go behind.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
But
there you go.
No, I'm very beige in that department. It's just
literally
well, not quite beige, but
just look like a bruise.
Yeah, just Calvin's. Calvin's plug me.
Is on that topic, is there something you've said that you're quite OCD about stuff? Is there something that you have to have with you or that you have to particularly do on a big competition day?
Do you know, there's two parts of me.
You have to put your own saddle on or else it all goes
left
wrong.
boot before right.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. So we always laugh at home. So I pulled the trailer up the other day because I was going to a show and there's no partition in it, and I was like, if I was taking 2 geldings, I probably wouldn't have even put a partition in. And all of the staff at home were like, that is so rogue. That is like so not you. How are you like 1 minute so anal and then the next minute
just put the boys
next to each other. And I think like there really is 2 parts of me. There's this like really rogue rodeo version of me, and then there's like, I must have an even number of...
There are probably not many people that would travel to quite...
No, I didn't. I did put the disclaimer. I did put the partition in, but you know, when you're like, I did genuinely think about doing that for a hot minute, and would have been completely fine
I
about
have
it.
got a question. Mare, gelding, or stallion?
Oh,
I've had a lot of success with stallions. I will always buy a mare over anything. Geldings, take it or leave it.
why?
Why?
Yeah.
They're too much like your friend. I need someone that's more of a partner.
So you want
in
a
fight.
bitch of a horse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you? What would you go? Mare, gelding, or stallion?
Easy time, gelding.
No, I prefer my mares.
I'm a mare girl.
And I mean, having a stallion is great if they're good, but I mean, we've been lucky with Dave, but I mean, I think it's a bit of a fashion thing at a time. 10 years ago, everybody wanted a stallion, and I mean, mine kicked me in the head and all sorts.
Yeah.
They're not always the best idea.
I just think having stallions is so overrated. It's so overrated as well because there's so many geldings with testicles.
Well, I think my stallion would have been a much better horse if he was gelded.
And a happier life.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, for example, we touched on Big Star being a fantastic sport horse and not necessarily the best breeding stallion. And I think there's a lot of good horses for the sport that people try to keep as a stallion to them. Commercially,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But actually, did they really produce the goods in their youngsters, you know? And I think working in a big breeding station in Europe, you know, you really quickly identify a sports stallion from a breeding stallion. You know, a sports stallion, he wins the classes and takes home the medals, but a breeding stallion produces those future horses to go on.
There's a lot of underrated stallions then out there.
For example, Canthargos. We lost him this year, unfortunately, but he only ever jumped to 120 himself. He sustained an injury in the sport, but went on to breed so many, you know, super horses.
So don't get caught up on the record.
Don't get caught up about the record, you know, because he was a prime example of a fantastic breeding stallion, but something that wasn't necessarily desirable in the sport, you know, because he only jumped 120s. You know, Chaco Blue went on to do amazing things, has produced amazing horses, but his mother never jumped, and Converter, who he's by, jumped 120s, you know, so it's also a pot luck, you know, you can't, 160 stallion, 160 mare. Hopefully you're going to get a jumper, but it's not always the way.
It's not guaranteed, is it?
That's really interesting.
So, one question that we do like to ask
on
the podcast.
Go on.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Oh my God, that's quite a tough one.
Like, who's the best person in your phone to ring when you've got a disaster?
Well, we all know
Katie.
that.
Yeah.
Not all disasters I'm best with. Emotional disasters I'm not so good with. Oh, come on, kick on. You're fine. You're not in prison, you're not dead. Get on the horse.
Best piece of business advice. Invest wisely, because what you've got today you might not have tomorrow.
Nice.
And that's because I tried to live in the fast lane, and I sell a horse and I go and buy a barrel of boot and shoes. Maybe I should have just gone and spent that money.
They're never going to lose value.
They're not. But
that's not a poor investment.
you go and buy, put £500 in stocks. I did that actually quite recently, and it's already...
He's going to sell crypto now.
No, I'm not going to start crypto mining.
My crypto page is
Yeah, and I think because your best horse can be taken off you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, don't rely on one stream of income. It's the best advice I've ever been given.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, don't sell your horse for lots of money, go and invest it all in the next best young one, because it might not be the next best young one.
Yeah, exactly. And you think you have it good, but you don't know what tomorrow may bring. So, and that's like everything. It's a bit cliche, but just invest smart, invest wise, and you'll learn along. You'll make bad investments, which will make you make good investments in the future.
Yeah, mistakes. You look back on them and you're pleased to have had them.
Yeah.
Any questions?
So on our live feed, one question has come up which you touched on briefly earlier. If you were buying a horse, just a riding horse, and it failed the vetting, would that put you off, or what do you think about vettings?
That's why I buy mares.
Another good one for mares.
Yeah.
So your breeding programme is based off a lot of broken mares. And that, my friend, is why the UK is in dire straits. But that is
the number of
just
people
because
that
it's
go.
got a vagina, please don't use it. Recips are fantastic things that are used for housing embryos of quality. Just because Jenny the donkey's broke down, don't go putting it to Big Star so no one can ride it and it's broken.
That is a fair point, because I think that was the kind
Can
of
I just caveat that I'm talking well-bred, nice mares that a right nice attitude but have a abscess, for example, and have to be off for 6 months.
I've even had clients who they go, we've bred this, we've got this mare, we've ridden her, she's 6 years old, but she's gone down, she's had hind suspensories and kissing spine, and she's got early onset
She
DJD.
booked us off as soon as we got on her.
And it's like,
So
we're
we
going to
bred
breed
it.
from her. Maybe.
No.
But you see it with dogs, all joking
Yeah.
aside, don't you? You see it with dogs. People just they'll go, I've got a female Labrador, there's a male Labrador that's a fancy stud dog, we'll chuck them together, and, that's how we've got dogs that can't breathe.
People really don't realise more quality comes from the mother line.
Yeah.
The stallions, they're almost just sperm donors with certain characteristics.
Well, there you go, there's a fact learned.
Quality comes
They
from the
attribute
mother.
it, 70-80%,
Yeah.
they say?
That's why my daughter's so clever and
Isn't
beautiful.
Yeah.
And yours!
My dogs are really cute too.
Amazing. That's really good. Really, really good.
And I think touching back to George's actual question.
Sorry.
I think did the horse chronically fail the vet check? Is it something that's never going to cause it? Is it a lameness? Is it a wind situation? Does it have a cataract in an eye? I think it very.
Is it going to get worse?
Even if it gets worse, is it manageable? Is it within your finances to maintain and manage this horse? And I think, does it fit the purpose? Like, I recently had a horse set by a client. It was a red and white.
Right. That's a new
back, Louie. All American on that.
What is that called? Ski balls. Yeah, ski balls.
Get your foundation knowledge right.
Yeah.
Is this always that piebald? Is it
Ski board. Piebald's black and white.
That's wrong.
Like a magpie.
Yeah. I feel like piebalds should be brown.
Yeah, see, that's why I just had to double check. Don't hate the haters. But anyway, back to the question.
Go ahead.
I had this horse. I literally jumped it cross country, sat on it backwards. Like, you know, it was safe as houses. You could stand on it and ride it up the lane on its back. It had lorries pass it, and it failed 2/10 lame on a hind flexion, and that put the prospective buyer actually off. But was it going to suit their needs and fulfill their needs and more? Yes, it was. So, okay, I always want to sell the horse, but that horse now is sat in the field because I don't particularly want to sell a lame one, but actually that horse could have served the perfect...
Be a really nice horse.
Do a really nice job and serve that purpose for someone. So, you know, it's...
It was quite refreshing this morning on Facebook. When I did my little morning check, there was a post on there saying, I'm looking for a horse that'll jump 130s, 140s, but has failed the vet. I'm happy to look at anything. So there was people actively saying I'm looking for something that actually might not pass the vet but can still do the job.
And just because it's lame now doesn't mean it's always going to be lame.
Its abscess might pop out.
Yeah, there we go.
you know, there's small things. You know, get a good sports vet, get a good physio. Okay, for sure, these horses are going to take more maintenance, but if it's going to do the job you want, then you know, everyone has to be realistic. Don't put a horse in a box because, you know, it sits in that certain criteria.
Would we all pass a medical?
No.
Well, that's what I always say.
Definitely not.
Any other questions?
Do you have any questions?
What's the best client you've ever had?
Oh, any means in relation to your business?
Darling.
Thank you. No, actually, I wanted to touch on this. How do you decide which clients you keep going back to, and how you tell the other ones that you're busy or you're sick? You know, how do you decide? Sift through your clientele to decide which horses and which people you want to treat.
So I talk about this actually on like the webinars and the trainings that we do with Equigate, and that is to learn to kind of value yourself as a cup of tea. And the reason I say tea is that you like your tea a certain way, you like your tea a certain way, I like my tea a certain way. Now that doesn't make anyone's tea any better or any worse, but it does make it different. And I'll make my tea my way, and you might not like it. That doesn't make you wrong or me wrong. It just means that we're not quite
compatible,
matching. Yeah. I'm only able to offer what I can offer, and I can offer it how I offer it, when I offer it, and my availability is what it is. If that works for you, you know, my clients now, they've made their appointments for this time next year. They just go through the whole year and they block it. Yeah.
Georgie, hope you've made some.
Noted. But, you know, if a client needed somebody to be able to come like this and to be able to, I don't know, offer... I only work with my hands. There are people that have like machines that help with inflammation.
If anyone's listening to this podcast that's not a horse, that is a right soundbite out of that last paragraph.
I mean, like lasers.
I only work with my hands, no toys.
And if a client wants me to come quick, that's what you've just said.
It was out of context. So yeah, I think you do find your tribe, and the longer you're in business, the more you find this, and the easier it is to gauge it.
Yeah.
So quite quickly, when I'm, you know, potentially working with new clients, you gauge really quickly whether they're your people, whether they're your tribe, and whether they're going to appreciate the work that you've offered, definitely. Or whether they want more than you're able to offer. Yeah. And at that point, you know, quite often I'll suggest, you know, maybe why don't you try someone who's a bit cheaper or a bit more available, or who does different stuff. And if they go away and then want to come back, then I'll always say, okay, but my availability is what it is. I can't be any more or less.
Yeah, no, that's super cool.
And people that take on your advice as well, because they've got to do the follow-up, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it in the last episode of, you know, you have to bug people to leave a good review, but people are so quick to leave a bad review. But I feel like if you're genuinely happy with the service you receive, you will leave a good review, you know, and I think that's like testament to my social media, you know, every time Jen comes and, you know, little post, and because I believe you can offer things to a horse. You know, I'm not one of these people. I'm not a daydreamer or a, you know, weekend hacker, and I think, you know, you've benefited my system, and I think other people's systems could benefit from you. So spread the word about good, you know, spread the word about good.
That's what we were saying on that last podcast. When you're in business on your own, you quite quickly learn to advocate for other people.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
that works for you. So no, that was a really good question, and it is. I've wasted infinite amount of time working for the wrong people who aren't my people, and trying to be something that they want me to be when I'm not.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I think it's also important to do that from the beginning, even though when you're setting out, you're scrapping around for the next 80 quid or to build up your network, but build the network with the right people rather than just anybody.
Yeah, learning to say no.
Question for all three of you. In your career, you've all probably dealt with awkward customers that you'd prefer not to, or you wouldn't want to go and treat their horses again or ride their horses. I'm sure you've dealt with clients, Kate, that you thought, I really don't want to see this person again or help them. At what stage in your career did you learn to be like, actually, I'm not going to go and ride that horse, or I'm not going to treat that person, or I'm not going to represent that client? How did you
I was on the verge of a burnout, and I ended up, when I say verge of a burnout, I'd worked
a few bottles of gin,
14 hours a day, absolutely frazzled through the weekend, no work-life balance, and I went and treated a horse for an eventer, not Louie, another eventer who I've worked with for years and years and years. And I said to her, I was like, how do you do it? How do you balance this? And she turned around to me and she said, Jen, you don't have to say yes to everyone. And I think as soon as just hearing that from someone else who I kind of saw as an equal in the industry, to hear like, oh, you do that as well, do you? And she goes, yeah. So then I was just...
You've not got an obligation to...
And if people are being like, and you're, especially around big championships, people will be on the message, hi, I need an appointment for my horse. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got the end of February. And they were like, well, I was hoping for Thursday. Rather than where before I'd be like, oh, let me see what I can do, let me, which
and then move to disappoint other people.
Yeah, it doesn't do you or your reputation any favours. Just this is where I say I have the availability I have. You're welcome to book into it, but I can't mould myself into something that I haven't got. What about you?
Terms and conditions that say I don't have to boot you at any time. Yeah, I think it is that, and when you realise that dealing with somebody that's difficult or dealing with a complaint actually just balances out any benefits you've had of having them as a client. It's back to the blacksmith point when we said, you know, a farrier could argue for ages with a horse to try and shoe it for, 20 quid profit. They'd have been better to say no and go and shoe somebody else's horse. So exactly the same.
I think with me and my personality, I am just who I am, and if I don't want to, you can very much gauge from me and my persona. You'll know whether I want to continue to do it, and I've found a way to just say no, but in a way that they were expecting me to say I don't want to ride this horse anymore, and in a diplomatic enough way not to make an argument. And I think that's just finding the niche of how to be able to say no without causing an argument, or I think that's so important.
You've got to like your clients to do the very best job for them. People say to me, oh, how do you do your job with some of the stuff that we do, and I'm like, I genuinely really like every one of my clients, and you will always do the best job because you have to, but if you like them, you're going to just do absolutely everything. So I think it's important you want them to like you and you to like them to get the best results. Same as your owners, you want to get on with them, or else you're still going to do a good job, but are you going to go that extra mile if your owner's a bit rude to you or doesn't appreciate it?
On that podcast we were listening, I think we both listened to the same one. They were saying, no one does what you do exactly like you do it. There are other people, there are other trainers and producers of horses and sellers of horses. There are other legal representatives, there are other horse vendors, but no one does it exactly the way that we do it. So you end up with people that want what you can deliver. They don't want what someone else can deliver, and that's where I say when I end up with these short, last minute people going like, I need an appointment this Thursday, it's because whoever they normally use can't fit them in. They really want what that person's got to offer, and I'm not that person.
So know your value then.
Exactly. Which is
actually that rings so true. Like I had a horse in to be produced for said client, and said client then decided to go to a situation where she could have the horse and be trained by the people and their rider would ride it. And then she's decided actually she liked the training but she didn't like how the rider rode the horse. So now the horse has come back for me to ride it and then she go back to them for the training, you know, and it's finding a system.
And you have to not be offended by that as well.
Yeah, and it's like she loved how I trained her horse. She didn't like how I taught her, you know, because I'm very...
Were you quite brutal?
I am so brutal.
I could just...
I'm very black and white, and in the end she came afraid of her horse and left afraid of me. And I think that's something, you know, so then you know, and I think
but she wasn't afraid of the horse.
No, so she wasn't, so I did my job.
Displacement.
Quite,
I think get on the GB horse.
Yeah, so and I think now she's gone to the stable, have got a new rider. She doesn't particularly love their style, so she wants me to educate her horse, but she's going to go to someone else for the trainer. So
no, she's not scared of the
no,
horse.
she's not that. And I said, well, that's a perfect format. If that's the format that works for you, it's great. I don't have to stand and scream to the top of my lungs about seeing a distance and coming one more because you missed that time. And did you feel that was a miss? But I can also
podcast.
But I can also educate a horse, and she enjoys my system. So it's, you know, it's finding a format that works for everybody as well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think we covered a lot there.
Yeah.
Poor George is
really,
looking
really
like
good.
she wants to say something.
Oh, she's got a question.
No, the battery on the phone is... We haven't got much longer.
Okay,
Yeah,
we are on the
so-
edge. So I think it's probably a good time to say thank you so much.
Yeah,
Louie.
thank you.
Thanks
Really
so much,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Yeah.
I'm
It's been really good to have that
seconds.
insight.
I'm gonna... Yeah, phone's... Hang on. Give me a moment.